Scientist. Today we are testing whether a clearly stated boundary can withstand external forces.
Scientist, yes, I've got my list right here of ways to test the boundary.
If a boundary, Scientist, is stated clearly, it will hold.
Let us test, Scientist. Scientist!
Okay. It's okay, Scientist. We'll just add some long explanations to the boundary.
Okay, let's test it, Scientist. Scientist!
Shoot. Well, I've got some apology right here. Let's add that, Scientist.
Scientist! Do you mind if I try something here?
Scientist, we don't have anything to lose.
There! I've stripped it of all it has, down to the very basic boundary. Scientist! It's holding up!
Conclusion, Scientist. Boundaries are stable on their own. Oh my goodness. Welcome to Sanity Penning Podcast. This is our twin episode for 10. We are twinsies today, and we are here today to talk about boundaries part 2. When you've set a boundary, how do you uphold it? And right?
Enforcing. You go right to the hard stuff.
Right away. So in our part 1, if you've not listened to it, you can go back to our previous video where we start to kind of talk about what a boundary is and like kind of how you know boundaries, very general stuff. And so for this, we're going to really kind of get to the hard stuff and talk about how to enforce boundaries. And so have you enforced a boundary before, Holly?
I have on more than one occasion. RTO, that affected me. So being in the office, and it was completely different than working at home, where working at home, I had a way to sort of protect my time. I didn't have these constant interruptions during the day. I could do, when I had tasks that really required me head down and being able to focus, I could actually do those tasks. In an office setting, though, totally different. So things that I had to do were like, hey, if my door is closed, I'm like working on something that requires concentration. I cannot be interrupted. And you would still have those couple of people who are like, knock, knock, knock. Can you envision it? Because it was like the most enraging thing ever. And trying to school your features, I'm a very expressive person. So as soon as you see them walk in, you immediately do the ugly, like, what the hell? Didn't you see my door was closed?
Yes.
And like, oh my God. So, I mean, I had to constantly remind people and enforce like, hey, my door is closed. I'm working on a very like important task here. Or, I have only an hour to get this done, whatever it might have been, and tell them as politely as I could, get the heck out of my office. I'm very busy right now. Don't ever disturb me again.
Agreed. And I always in my head, like formulated sarcastic responses to it where they come in and they just start talking and I'm like, what about this scenario made it look like I was ready for a conversation? Door shut, right? Like to your point, door shut, actively working on something.
Right.
And I think that the only time that did not occur is if I was on the phone. And then there's something about being on a phone that they know that they can't interrupt, but interruption becomes accessible when you're actually like working on something else and not on the line with someone else or have someone else in your office or right. So if you're already engaged with another person on the phone or have somebody in your office, those seems to be the only clues that now is not the time. Right. But any other time, it's okay to interrupt. So it's not. Yes. I would understand if like I was leaned back in my chair on my phone, not on the computer, clearly not doing work.
Right. Yeah.
It's not like I just wanted the door shut to keep people. I mean, like the door is there to keep people out. So why is the door open? why the door open?
I was very fortunate to even have a door because that wasn't always the case. I should say, like I've had the, open space office settings where I've sat out in the open and things like that. And it's much harder to sort of convey the message to everybody around you that, hey, I'm working on something, I cannot be disturbed. That gets more challenging. But yeah, no, certainly I don't know, the whole like the knock, knock, knock thing always just grated on my nerves. I can't even tell you every time I would hear that. And it seemed like that's a thing everybody does. I think they know it's annoying, so they do it. I don't know. I can't imagine like you would do it and you're a sane person. Yeah. So, and one of the things that we've talked about, like not on like in one of our episodes, but it's sort of like just between us is like, the differences between a preference and an actual boundary, like things that you would like to have happen and then things that you need to have happen so you can like protect your time, whatever it might be, right? So do you have any good examples of kind of like when you had to differentiate the two for yourself to sort of like decide like, hey, this is something that I'm going to fight for lack of a better word, because it's so important to protect this for myself?
Yeah. I think the best example that I have is honestly related to the interruption mode, because and so in a virtual environment, I have a personal preference. I do not like to be cold called.
Yes, I can relate to that.
Send me an IM. Let me know the reason for why you need to actually talk to me. And then, because maybe I have the information of what you need and I might be able to get it for you without having to be on the phone. Because in that virtual environment, I'm in meetings all day. I'm trying to limit the amount of time that I need to spend talking to a person about something because they really just want to start talking about other things or they really want to give all these explanations. And the point is that you need a thing, I can get you the thing, and I might be able to do it within 30 seconds. And you instead want to extend the 30 seconds into a 2-minute plus.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in the greetings, the niceties, I just want to be able to get the thing done. And that sounds really callous, but I just get in that mode sometimes where I'm just like, do not cold call me. Yeah. And I totally understand that that's how phone calls used to work. You never knew when somebody was going to call you. Yeah, and even now, right?
That's not normal these days. And like, that's been the case for many, many years. I would say even prior to COVID, like when we were all like, forced. I mean, that was always sort of like the etiquette, right? Is you always give a heads up. Hey, I need this thing. Hey, do you have a minute? Or like you said, just tell me what the heck you need. And I can let you know if it's something I have readily, or you're going to call me and I'm going to say, hey, I don't have it on hand anyways. I need to go find it for you, which was often the case for me. Like everybody always wanted all these policies. Like, yes, I know there's a policy out there. Do I have it at my fingertips? No.
No, but give me a chance.
Yeah, right. Like, I don't need you on the phone while I'm searching the direct, like the list of things to give it to you. Like, what the heck? Yeah, I know what you mean. Ugh.
And it does. And it feels rude because, and I love that you use the word etiquette because that's exactly what I was thinking of here. Yeah. It was like, I have my own etiquette preferences because this is the difference. Like I may tell people, right? Like as I'm explaining it here, I let other people know, please don't cold call me. Please don't cold call me, right? Yeah. And I know other people who were very firm about that. Yeah. And it may have been treated as it was a boundary, like, don't do it. You're going to piss me off, right? Yeah. Or you're going to, like, make my day really bad if you do this kind of thing. Yeah. But that's really not a boundary per se. Yeah. It's more just like that preference, like you were getting at for your question. But it's still something that can allow me the control over the day that I need. Yes. Just because you call, for some reason, phone calls push people's needs to the top without it being an agreement that that need actually needs to be at the top. Yeah. And I would like to be able to make that agreement, and I can do that much clearer on an IM.
Yeah.
Text. Just like send me the message, let me know what you need. But there is this sense that having a phone call makes that individual like that their request is special.
Urgent. Yes.
Yeah. And honestly, your request is just like everybody else's request. So yes, I feel pretty strongly about, and other people have these, business rules, ways to work with me that are all really kind of fall into that bucket of preference and etiquette. And there are pretty standard ways of etiquette that you can see in terms of, language and generally being that, customer service, adjacent related behaviors that are a little firmer than a preference, but as an individual, I would say that it's mostly don't cold call me is the biggest one that I can give you as an example.
Yeah. Well, I really liked how you sort of talked about like this agreement thing with your preferences, kind of like this is something I would like to have happen, but I'm open to negotiating or whatever, depending on the situation, right? Case by case basis. Because like a really good example that I have for me, like cold calling is a great one. Another example that I have for me is I don't like meetings in that first hour of my day if I can help it, right? Because I like to have my email open. I like to skim to see like what are my priorities for the day? What has come in since I was last online? And same thing, I'm working with people across the country. Like most of the jobs I've had, I'm working with people all over the country, so different time zones, and I try to give them the same respect. I try not to do things like first thing in their like within their first hour of coming online either. But something that I was always well, not always. I got better at enforcing this boundary later was not taking phone calls though when my shift has ended. Like if it comes in within that last half hour, none of my, you were like, hey, this is going to be a 2-minute plus. I've never had a 2-minute call. My calls have always been like 30 minutes or more. And like, you have to like tell them like enough's enough. I got to go. I got other stuff to do. And so that's why I was always like very firm about like, if it's in the last half hour, I let people know, hey, I'm wrapping up stuff. I'm sending my last emails for the day. This can wait until tomorrow. Or I'm not even answering emails, right? Like, because somebody might say, hey, I'm going to send you an email about this. I'm like, great, I'll tackle that first thing in the morning. Like, no, I'm not getting paid overtime to do these things, and I'm not giving up my time for free. That was always at the end, always a hard boundary for me. Again, these are things like you kind of decide. You don't always know in the beginning what's going to be important to you to protect. And for me, it was time. I learned later on, time is precious. You only have so much of it. So I'm going to protect that. I only have so much of it to spend with my family, doing these other things that I want to be doing. I give so much already to work. I'm not giving you stuff extra for free.
Oh, I really like how you came into a realization of what became important for you as it progressed. But have you had an experience where you knew that you were setting a boundary, or did it not feel like it was a boundary until somebody attempted to like take it down? Like,
that's a good point. I would say like I sort of subconsciously knew. Like, so if I use the, anything after hours, doing work for free after hours, I would say subconsciously I knew that that was a boundary, but it didn't like, I wasn't aware of how important that was for me until somebody started testing it. And it always started small, right? Somebody might ask you something and you say no. And then somebody comes in and they have a different sort of, I want to say excuse. It sounds mean, but like they have a different reason for needing your assistance after hours. And now I would probably say, F no, and no, under no circumstances will I do this. But there were a couple times where I was like, you know what? I know that this is a hot item, whatever it might be. I'm going to make an exception. And that was my mistake. Because now, Amber, people are like, I know sometimes this works. So if I keep asking over and over and over again, it's going to wear her down. It's going to wear down her defenses. I'll get through one of these because I know if I try enough, if I ask enough, one of them might get through. And that was my mistake. And that's why I say now, looking back, I would say, heck no, under any circumstances. I would not do it because people then manipulate you and take advantage and will keep trying until you give in again. They want to get a result out of you that they got before. And yeah, that's kind of how I knew that that was more important than just hey, this is my preference, is not to do work for free.
Right.
But what about you? Did you have to have it tested before you realized?
I think yes. And also no. So I think that my realization of boundaries, I think I was already like, the creation of a boundary didn't happen for me until I was already in pain from repeated behavior. So then I felt like by setting the boundary that it was going to somehow magically kind of resolve how I was feeling by, telling people I'm not gonna stand for this kind of behavior anymore. It's really hurting me, and obviously not being that vulnerable in setting of that boundary, just being like, I'm not gonna do that anymore. Right. And that, so my relationship with boundaries is usually when they have already or I've already put myself into a situation that having no boundaries has hurt me. And I know that I need to put it. So I've never been surprised that I had a boundary that I was trying to enforce. And then just upon reflection was like, oh yeah, somebody was testing this thing and I'm going to set a boundary. For me, it's always been intentional because I'm already in pain. So I'm always creating boundaries, it seems like, from a place of pain. And my work with boundaries is to try and understand them ahead of time, to know what I need to put in place before I get to the part that I'm like, I'm so
right.
Can this stop?
I feel that for you.
Stop?
I know that feeling. Oh, it's awful. It's miserable. Ugh.
So it makes me curious, for those of us who are working on boundaries, at what point does it feel like a boundary? At what point in your process of it would you say, oh, yeah, that was totally a boundary for me? Or are you more like me and just I have to do something and it's called a boundary? And right. So I know it's an evolution of boundaries.
Well, and I like how you're I'm doing this and I'm calling it a boundary. So did you call your stuff, when you started setting boundaries, did you call out and say, hey, that's a boundary for me? I'm not or maybe didn't use the word you don't have to say boundary, but did you let people so you spoke it out loud, said, I'm not doing this. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Because I think that was always a piece that I missed. It felt like that might start conflict, or that might there might be resistance to that. It always felt a little hard. So it wasn't until much later, and maybe it had to do with some of my other tendencies too, of just being unless somebody invited me to bring that up, I wouldn't state it. I'm just in my head, I'm no, I have a boundary. I'm not doing that. And so I never shared hey, I don't answer calls after hours. I don't answer emails after hours. I wasn't speaking it out loud to let people know. I'm just doing these things to let people know that I have this boundary. But I think that was a key piece of it that I always was missing. So that's really, I'm glad that you were doing that, because I probably should have done that. I probably would have had a lot less grief and annoyance.
Well, I mean, I say that, but again, it didn't work very well. So I still had a very similar experience to yours, where they were constantly being tested.
Yes.
And because I wasn't firm enough, or because my personal relationship with boundaries makes me feel like I'm mean, that I'm being that's that people pleaser, right? That by telling somebody, no, this doesn't work for me, that I'm somehow in the wrong, or I would, in trying to be, this is gonna happen, right? It would actually just come out passive aggressive, and because I wasn't really fully being firm, I just then was waffling into this will you just read between the lines and know that you're the reason why I have to be I think that we're in this
read between
weird,
the lines.
awkward.
That was always me. Yes. Yeah.
And
I know.
people don't read. They don't read emails. They don't read instructions. They don't
the social
read.
cues are just they just don't know how to pick up on it. You and me, Amber, I can look at you and I know exactly what you're thinking. I'm but these other people, I'm do you not get? Or for you, as soon as I see the head tilt, I'm oh, you've done it now. You've done it now. It's how do people not pick up on this? What the heck?
No, we all have skills, and not everybody has the, body language, nonverbal cues.
Yeah. Don't know how to read those.
Skills, right?
Yeah.
They don't know how to read those. But I do. Yes. By the way, I have been informed it's a trauma response that I do it. But not to use, catchy phrase words, because I think that trauma-informed, trauma response, these are all very clicky, cliche, whatever. They are trendy phrases right now.
Yeah.
And so, but truly, this is a learned behavior to read people's emotions to make sure that I am safe and okay.
Right.
And so hence my relationship with telling somebody no is kind of related to that. Am I putting myself in danger by setting this boundary with a person, even though the stakes are low? We're not even in the same room. We're just over a video call. But the danger is kind of going back to our episode on reputations. It's not necessarily physical safety. It is my reputational safety. It is, will this damage people's ability to see me in the way that I want to be known and seen, which is reliable and trusted. And as soon as I start saying no, that's to me, in my head, the antithesis of being reliable and trusted, because reliable and trusted people say yes. And that's actually, that's a lie. So FYI, if you are in that camp with me and Holly, that's a lie. You can say no and still be, trusted and respected and reliable and trustworthy and all the things that you want to be and still set boundaries. That's the point of talking about these things, is that we are learning, we are trying to figure it out, and we have a lot of pain as a result of our learning.
And actually talking through these things, I've realized how far I've grown. And I like wish I could go back to my former self and like whisper some of these secrets, you know, like it's okay to say no, like, you know, things like that. And because you said something that really triggered a memory for me about like the power dynamics too, that play a role in like how hard it can be sometimes to like enforce a boundary. Because I think, you know, one of the things for me, it's like I've had people who have subtly threatened me for having a boundary and trying to enforce it. And I use subtly threaten because it's, you know, it's sometimes it's kind of hard for me to explain it, but it's one of those things where, you know, you have a boundary and you try to enforce it. Like if you do this, I'm going to do this. Like you send me an email after hours, I'm not responding. That's what happens when you cross a boundary. You don't get a response from me. Now you have to wait until the next day. I'm firm about it. But then you have people who sort of are like, you know, no, and I use the power dynamics thing because a lot of times you communicate your career aspirations with, you know, people who are in power that, hey, I have these aspirations to be this, or, you know, I'm really curious about this career path or whatever it might be. You share those things with like leaders, people who are in positions of power. And sometimes they use that information to their advantage and manipulate you or try to threaten you in a way that, hey, well, these are things that these positions, these careers that you have an interest in, they have to do these things. And so there's this manipulation that goes on, and you don't always have time in the moment to process that. A lot of these things I've thought about years after the fact that, wow, I was really manipulated in all of these different scenarios. I was tricked into doing things that I didn't want to do, or like, you know, I didn't have capacity to do. And, you know, I got burnt out and I remember getting sick and like, you know, doing these things. And like, because I thought like I had to do them. So those things come up not in the moment, but things that I often reflect on after the fact, and hearing some of the listener submitted stories and just you and I talking through some of these different things. I'm like, gosh, this is when I really wish I could go back to my former self and like say, hey, here's all these things going on. Because yeah, I've grown a lot just doing our episodes together, honestly, Amber.
And being out of the scenario, because I will say that I have a very similar approach where I'm like, oh, if I was in that scenario again, this is how I would do it differently. And that's so easy to say, right? Until you have the how do I say this? The emotional context of the scenario.
Yes.
And so it may not look the same emotionally, or I may not have the same reputation, or there may be other factors that then changes where I think I'm walking right into the same situation to set this boundary, and this is how I'm going to do it, and this is how I'm going to be.
Right.
And then something new comes along, and then it's like, well, shoot, right? Yeah. Like I was successfully set this boundary here, but then now I have this new boundary to learn. So I feel like in every case, and it feels so nice and easy to talk about it and think about it when I'm not in it emotionally either. So a lot of times when you, like, especially in my case, setting a boundary when you're already in pain, you're already burned out, emotionally exhausted, you are already at the depleted state of yourself. So coming from a perspective of feeling fully charged and, you know, ready to go, I'm not going to walk into a scenario now and be like, boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Like I have a battery full of boundaries. And the reality is that I may not, right? Because I'll be just coming into a scenario and getting to know the lay of the land and meeting people. And that may not be the time to set those boundaries, or it is, right? Because then I don't know that that's the time to set them because of my past experience. So I feel every scenario is a playground. And it is so easy for us to look back on those times and be like, man, I wish I could have known this and could have known that. And but if you're currently like in it right now and you're trying to do those things, big heart.
No kidding.
Like that's pain. I can feel the pain in it because it is really hard. And I love that you called out that also the hesitancy to set a boundary because it actually could be seen as an act of vulnerability because you're expressing what your opinion is about something. It's not your opinion, it's your fact, right? Like this is a fact, but it could be taken as a preference and confused as this is where you want to go. This is what you want to do. So I now am going to use that as information for whichever way that I choose, right?
Yeah.
Like meaning you might be left out of conversations because you've left for the day. So meetings might get scheduled at a certain time to make sure that you aren't, right? So, but that's going to happen like you still set the boundary. So what if you're not included in that meeting? If that was something that you needed to know, that would have been their responsibility to make sure that you needed to, right? Like it also sounds like if that kind of behavior is happening, get out.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a red flag for me to start looking elsewhere. But I will say, too, I think, like, one of the things that I learned later on, like, so just, sorry to keep, like, using the example, but it gives me other things that I think of like, you know, not taking calls, not answering emails after hours, is one thing that I realized, especially later on, is that I was the SME. Are there other people who can do work? Sure. But who knows the information to, like, be considered a true expert in that area? I had confidence that, yes, anybody can probably do like the work piece of it, but do they understand like the implications and what this might impact? I felt confident I had those answers, and I knew if those answers were important to people, they would include me. So, and not to be like brag camp again, but like I was quite the model employee. Everybody loved me, but but again, you like come into that confidence usually later on. Like it wasn't like off the bat, like right, like you're in this new job, you don't know anything, you don't like you're not confident, you're getting the lay of the land, like you said. It was much later that like maybe because my confidence had built, I felt more assured to set some boundaries and felt like I could enforce them, not necessarily and have them respected because they weren't always respected, but I could enforce them and not feel guilty about doing it. Because again, my people-pleasing tendencies too, I always wanted to say yes. And again, that's to avoid conflict. It's very awkward for me to like get into these certain situations, that discomfort that you feel. So, but I could do it and not feel guilt. But that came much later for sure.
And something that I've learned, like, so in talking about the stuff that the differences between being in the moment and being out of the moment, I've discovered that the responsibility for that action and not setting that boundary is fully mine.
Yeah.
And I might look at it as I have to set up a boundary because this person is doing this thing. And it was easy for me to blame and make myself the victim. And that the boundary was like my only defense against the like, stop,
Yes, yeah.
please, sir, stop beating me, right? But or ma'am, it could be a ma'am, like it doesn't have to be a man, like sir, ma'am, right? Like whoever, right? And, but making yourself a victim. And I will tell you, absolutely, that I still have not learned the boundary of saying no firmly enough and not being in that situation and being like who I am now, working on becoming an entrepreneur and getting myself into all of these other spaces. I still haven't learned that boundary of when to say no. And I think that I have more capacity than I actually do. So then I overcommit. So then when I take that activity and I'm like, oh, well, I just needed that person's behavior to stop. I need me to stop doing that. So, ouch, I just hit my knee. And so
setting boundaries for yourself.
That was like setting boundaries for myself. It was Judge, I'm not a cat. Like that was not an earthquake. That was my knee hitting.
Still my favorite. It's probably my favorite. Love that.
Story time.
Story time. Okay. The arms like moving was a little scary.
I felt like one of those weighted dolls that no matter like what you do, they always kind of come back to the center, and you just
makes me think of those like things that flap out in the front of like the car places. What's that called? I don't know. Those things. We're gonna put it in here. That's funny.
What are those called? I don't know.
I don't know. The things like as soon as I did this, you knew what it was. So I was like, whoa.
Okay, so for this momentous boundaries episode and talking about enforcement, instead of a listener story, I wanted to bring in a story that we might all have had access to knowing and seeing play out live. Maybe, right? But at least this happened on a very public stage. So, oh my God.
What? Oh! That's going in the clips.
It's the year of the horse.
It is the year of the horse. Oh my God, it is the year of the horse.
Oh my God, we are recording the podcast and Holly said that is going in. You were
That's going to be a
you
clip.
did that to yourself.
Yes,
you did
you'll
that
regret
to yourself,
it.
sir. Oh my God, no, he is giddy. I think he wants to be a part of our podcast. Okay, so I'm going to redo the story time.
Yeah, yes,
So-
yes. Okay, official. Story time.
Story time. Okay, so our
Sounds beautiful.
story.
Mhm.
Thank you. Our story is a little different. Instead of it being listener submitted, I thought that I would bring in for this momentous boundaries episode to kind of talk about enforcing a boundary, where we saw an example of a celebrity, in this case, it's an athlete, enforce a boundary publicly. So here's example sets, right? And kind of what happens when a boundary is enforced. So this story is about Naomi Osaka, who is a tennis player. It is a tennis player, right? And so in May of 2021, at the French Open, a professional tennis player, Naomi Osaka, announced she would not participate in mandatory post-match press conferences. And her reason was clear. Press conferences were severely impacting her mental health. She said she had experienced long bouts of depression since 2018, and that the format of questioning often felt like kicking a person while they were down. The tournament fined her $15,000 and warned of escalating penalties, including possible suspension from future Grand Slams. She didn't back down from her statement or need, and it cost her a lot. It cost her money, it cost her ranking points, and it cost her criticism, as these big items could not be overlooked as her enforcing this boundary. So,
Wow.
right? So talk about true enforcement.
Yeah.
In terms of
that sort of pressure on the world, on the world stage. Yeah.
On the world stage.
Yeah.
Oh, right?
Yeah.
Oh. So, yeah. So what stands out for you in enforcement of a boundary in her examples?
Well, in that case there, the one that you just read, the first thing I think of is admiration and leadership, honestly, because I really do see a leader here. Enforcing this boundary to protect herself in the face of threats from, is this an organization, federation? I don't know what you call it, the people that set the fines or whatever, but, in the threats from these individuals, I saw where this could create a movement that normalizes healthy limits for some of the other players out there, because there's no way she's the only one that feels this way. Out of all the athletes out there, there's no way she's the only one who's feeling this. So whether that was intentional or not, that's culture shaping behavior right there. And I really admire that, to be the one to kind of take a stand and say, no, I'm not doing that for my own safety, to protect myself. But if other people see that, and wow, it's so brave, so brave.
Yeah, it also makes me think of when Simone Biles did
I'm just thinking
similar.
of Simone. Yes,
right?
Because the Olympics are going on right now. I thought of her too in this case.
Correct. And so it's these two very, very self-aware women who are understanding of what their needs are and understanding of what suffering looks and feels like to them when it comes to mental health, knowing how it gets contributed to making it worse, and then being criticized, lambasted, and in Naomi's case, fined for setting a boundary. Because I think, and I'm so she didn't attend a press conference.
No.
Why are press conferences mandatory? What are you learning from a press conference?
I want to know
too. That is so important that you would fine somebody for not attending it? Is it because you had to rent out a space to hold, and that the fine is going to pay for you to have that space because there's got to be money exchanged somewhere for her to have been fined monetarily. Like, I actually kind of want to better understand why.
I think because they just want to control her. They were like, you do this thing or else we're going to, like, you know, give you all these fines or whatever. And she didn't back down. And they're like, no, we need to control all of our athletes. They all need to do what we say. I think it's a control thing. And she, like, stood up to them, stood up to a bully, and they didn't like that. Like, God, like, when do bullies ever like being stood up to, you know?
Very good point. Very good point. And the fact that, like, her words are feeling like being on that stage, so to speak, right? Like on the risers and sitting behind a table. Like, that's what I think of when I've seen, you know, athletes being interviewed. It's usually just like a little riser with a table, microphones, you know, like, and they're asking them very vulnerable questions about something that maybe didn't go the way that they planned. And what answer are you expecting somebody to say when, like, hey, so you missed that shot and what did that feel like? Or what would you want to have happen? And it's like, what? Can you ask a better question?
Yeah.
Like, why? I'm not sure. I'm not really a sports watcher, so I can't fill in what I learned from seeing somebody interviewed at the end because I'm not interested in, like, watching the event in particular. But I wonder if anybody is learning something about success and failure of athletes who are handling high pressure, and why do we continue to do that? Like, why is that a behavior? Why do we need to know what's happening in somebody's head as they are experiencing defeat? Or because I'm not sure in any of the interviews that I have seen that you're going to get a different answer of, well, that didn't go the way that we wanted to go. We're going to do better next time. We're going to go back and look at the tapes. We're going to go back and look, you know, is there another answer that you are trying to get? And because you haven't gotten it yet, you just keep asking the same question over and over and over again. Like, I'm not sure that there is a need, I guess, is long way of saying.
What's the value? What's the value in these interviews? And, like, I don't know. I don't know that there is value other than putting people under a microscope and making them feel like people are picking them apart. And, like, who would want to like, the first thing when you started kind of like talking about this, it made me think of this one video that you and I saw where this 7-year-old was, like, interviewing for a lawyer job. And, like, can we skip that question? Like, that would be me. Like, I don't like that question. Right. Like, I wonder if you could just do that. Like, I don't want to answer that. Or, like, I'm skipping that question. Like, be there, but just not answer. I don't know what the rules are either. So, it's hard for me to think about, like, different scenarios that could play out if you had to go and just, like, didn't want to participate. Or in her case, I think saying, I'm not going at all, that should be respected. I think, like, what's wrong with that? Nobody can tell me, nobody could convince me that there's anything wrong with that, you know? Her reason should be, like, enough. Like, get the heck out of here. I mean, I am curious too, Amber, just, like, because we know how hard it is to enforce boundaries. It's one thing to say, I'm creating this boundary. It's one thing to speak it out loud, because that's very brave as well, to not just decide in your head that you're going to set a boundary, but to tell people, hey, this is a boundary for me now. So somebody who might be struggling with any part of that, like speaking it or enforcing it, because sometimes enforcing it gets hard when you haven't verbally communicated that. So, you know, what would you say, or what would you ask them to sort of, like, work through deciding that this is important enough for me to protect? I want to do this. It's just hard to do this. You know, what would you say or do, ask them?
I think the theme of that sounds like it's about your commitment to the boundary or to your commitment to the need. And so the question for me really stands out as, if this boundary requires you to absorb discomfort but won't eliminate it, does it still stand? If you have a relationship and understanding that a boundary is going to remove how you are feeling in that moment and repair, and it doesn't, do you stick with your boundary? So is your allegiance to feeling better or to the need that you have? Because getting to where that core relationship is could also help inform a myriad of other things that could be happening in that scenario. And let's just use the story that I told at the beginning, right? Like knowing that I am setting boundaries after I'm already in pain and I've already had this thing, that is probably, I'm using a boundary as an attempt to feel better, to make that behavior stop. And so if somebody continues to push on that boundary and I still feel beat down and it's just more work to have to enforce the boundary than it is to just accept it, then actually my allegiance in those scenarios is to feeling better and is not to the boundary. I don't actually have a relationship to the need. That is to protect my time, to protect my space, to protect whatever it is that I needed to do to feel better. My allegiance at that point, my work, my desires have everything to do with the feeling. And a boundary won't necessarily fix that for you right away. It's going to take time. And so it's going to have to stand this enforcement testing, right? Across. So there's got to be a commitment to the boundary, I think is the theme.
Yeah, definitely. Something that you said that I don't know why it made me think of this, and it's probably because we just did an episode where we touched on some of these things is, where somebody could potentially set a boundary to avoid growing. Like we gave an example previously about, giving presentations or leading meetings and how it could be uncomfortable or how something may not go the way you're attempting to build skills and it may not go the way you expected. You're embarrassed. You're afraid to try it again. So you say, hey, I'm putting a boundary where I'm never going to try these things again. And I think the reason why that stood out to me, because I could see where somebody would say, I don't like that feeling. I don't want to feel that way again. And like differentiating the difference between those growing pains, that professional growth that comes, and then that, like what you were talking about, like the burnout and the draining of yourself where there's almost nothing left of you. You're almost like a shell. That's all that's been left of you. There's a big difference between those. And man, it's hard to kind of like every person's going to have to kind of differentiate that for themselves. It's hard to kind of put that into a nice little package and say, here's some things you need to be on the lookout for. I wouldn't really know how to say that.
No, and it's also, you bring up a really good point about the flexibility of boundaries. So if not enforced or upheld, it could become a preference.
Right. Yes.
If enforced too strongly, it could become a wall. And I hear in the example that you have supplied from, previous episodes is that that's a wall that's been built that then now they can't see over that wall, that they are enforcing and continuing to enforce a boundary in order to stay protected behind a wall.
Right.
But that boundary is not actually serving a purpose as a boundary.
Right.
Again, right? Against the behavior. It is more of I'm hiding behind this and I'm sending a message in a way of like, don't even dare attempt this. Whereas a boundary does have some flex. It can bend and stretch as you grow and as you change, and that your boundaries can change. But if your boundary, you have made it into a brick wall, then that's a wall. That's not really a and so again, it has to do with intention and purpose and your commitment to it. And if you are overly committed to your boundary, then you might miss growth opportunities, or you might miss an opportunity to connect with another person who could help you navigate things. And instead you just are like, I've had one bad experience. I never want that to happen again. So I am closed for business when it comes to this particular activity.
Right.
Or I'm a difficult person, or they have, they are building a wall, not a boundary.
Right.
In that story. So it's right. It's like Goldilocks and Three Bears, right? Like too little equals something that you maybe didn't anticipate that you wanted. Yeah. Too much is something else. And then there's just the sweet spot of just right. And even in the just right, I think the whole point of this, Holly, is that even in the just right state, it requires maintenance.
That's true.
Just because it's not a set it and forget it.
I was just thinking set it and forget it. Oh my God, that is so weird. I swear. I'm not we literally are on the same wavelength. I literally saw the infomercial, set it and forget it, with the big turkey in the oven. I'm like, I literally just thought that. Wild stuff, guys. What? Wild. Okay. Sorry, you said it, and I literally 2 seconds later, and I would have said it out loud myself. Dang, that almost freaked me out. Right? I was like almost freaked out until I realized I'm talking to Amber, so of course we're on the same wavelength. Yeah.
One day we're going to say something at the exact same time, and it's going to be like an implosion of some sort.
For sure. We should be careful.
We have to be careful.
Yeah.
We should be, we're dealing with some dangerous stuff here.
Yeah, dark matter. No.
Boundaries, the dark matter of boundaries. So it's all work. Yeah. And so it's just a matter of where do you want to put work, and doing the work of enforcing the need, which is enforcing the boundary, is going to eventually put you in a position to get what you need. Maybe.
Yeah.
And there's not even a guarantee. And it's not like you wouldn't have done the boundary wrong. It's just that people are crafty, and they just will find other ways that you didn't anticipate that they could kind of get around or get you to bring down your boundary, like you had mentioned, right? They just keep going. And so it takes work to uphold the boundary. So this is definitely not a master plan that boundaries will fix everything, because they don't. And most of the time we don't understand. It's because it's not a guarantee that it's going to fix anything. Most people just accept the poor behavior than they do on setting the boundary.
Well, I think you made a good point that sometimes the boundary doesn't fix it. Some workplace cultures are toxic. You cannot fix that culture, and setting a boundary is not necessarily going to fix your circumstances. If you're working somewhere where they're, maybe those after hours things are not optional. You don't get to say no. It's you do this or you don't have a job. So, I realize everybody's circumstances are going to be different. So I like the whole, you can't just set it and forget it. And, your circumstances may change. Everybody's, you might be in a different position now or got a promotion, and suddenly your circumstances have changed, and the boundaries that you had previously, you need to fine tune those. So I like how you called it, you have to maintain stuff. It's not just about enforcing it, but it's about assessing those things. And, those might change over time. I'm certain that things that were important to me when I first had my very first office job were not the same things that were important to me at the, end of my tenure. So, yeah, that's definitely a good point.
And it's wrapped into a lot of other things as to why
so many layers.
That commitment may not be made, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's related to self-worth. Sometimes it's related to they don't feel worthy enough that they want to put their energies into protecting. It feels selfish of people to be that this is a thing.
All of
guilty.
Those things.
There's my gosh, there's so much. And so I can appreciate that people using boundaries as the fix it or fixident. It's not it's not like your denture glue, right?
No, it's definitely not denture glue.
Because I thought that was the commercial that Fix It and Forget It came from.
No, oh my God.
Fixident.
No, it's the guy with the turkey in the oven. Set it and forget it. You know the guy? You remember the guy, right?
No, because I'm sitting here thinking of the denture commercial, friend.
Intermission. I gotta show you. Set it.
I swear.
And forget it. No, it's definitely the turkey. Here's the guy. Let me give you
Okay, but
rotisserie and barbecue compact model. This is okay, guys. This is what we do here. We share these hilarious references to the 90s, the 80s, our favorite memes, all of that stuff. So if that's your thing, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss this next week's episode, because who knows what sort of craziness we'll get up to next week. And also, if you didn't know, we're over on other socials. We've got an Instagram. We're on Reddit. It's our favorite place to share memes and some of these other funny videos that we find. So come hang out with us over there. All right, guys. This has been Sanity Pending Podcast. I'm Holly. This is Amber. And this is your reminder, guys, that if you haven't throat punched somebody this week, it's been a good week. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Bye. So if we're going to go down that rabbit hole, let me tell you, the millennials, we're the last generation that knows how to, actually, I think we're the only generation that knows how to flip a PDF. So just saying, I've never met anybody else that knows how to do it except for a millennial. That information's going to die with us. So yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh my God.
Hope you appreciate it.